Okay. Now say it.
The siren of sirens.
Woo! I love it.
Oh my!
I'm just so glad you love that song so much.
You know what? It's
Driving
interesting.
over here, I heard it 3 times.
Well, but didn't you notice, to our credit, that we got a little more coordinated each time? That time
Yes.
actually seemed
Yes.
almost seamless. Not quite, but almost. Yeah. Hey, Jennifer.
Hey there.
Ooh, all right. So
I just drove by the swarms of no's and yeses on B, so I'm so happy that tomorrow that vote will be over, because I'm
I don't really understand
tired of
the whole
looking
thing.
at that all. But
I don't understand the whole thing, but we don't get to vote on it anyway. So.
no, I don't
Neither
either.
do I.
I'm technically in the county, just out.
I really think that's. Is that too loud?
It seems
too
to
loud
be.
for her. Okay,
But-
that thing is probably it. Yeah. Anyway, it's actually kind of ridiculous to me because everything that goes on here affects all of us in the surrounding area. It seems like we should all vote on it.
I
but
know.
don't
I know.
Yeah.
I'm only a block and a half out in the county, but I'm still.
Yeah.
I
There
feel
should
like
be-
I'm in town. I'm
there
a
should-
mile from the plaza, and yet I'm not going to get to vote on it.
Yeah,
But
there should
anyway.
be something a block before your house that says you are now
Yeah.
forfeiting the right to vote. Enjoy
Well,
your stay.
You kind of notice it because there's all of a sudden the road gets full of potholes. There's no sidewalks. And
Oh, yeah.
there's no street lights all of a sudden. So you go over this
Yeah.
line and you're in the county
Yeah,
now.
we're in county too.
No
so we're-
one's taking care of us out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Okay, so what?
But anyway, I want to talk about something hopeful.
Yes,
Oh,
good
good.
idea.
After I know you guys were talking about Obamacare and the
Yeah.
shutdown, and it's so hard to take all that in and not get discouraged. So
Yeah.
that's
Right.
why I like to search through the science realms and find some inspiration.
We love
And-
that about you.
And I wanted to talk about biomimicry again because
Okay.
I have more stories and more inventions, and I just think it's such a hopeful thing as a whole field. And
Again, in the unlikely event that we have a new listener, please go over what biomimicry is again. Yeah.
biomimicry is the science. It's kind of a new field of innovation that's inspired by nature. So it's a discipline of, I guess, mostly biologists, but engineers looking at nature, looking at some of the strategies that nature has developed over 3.5 billion years. Mm-hmm. And
That's pretty resilient.
very resilient. We've only been around 10,000 years. So just kind of paying attention to things and studying that and then looking at the strategies and then trying to incorporate that into our own world.
Do you kind of have a sense of when that started, or was it just an overall thing that you think kind of had to come to pass that people would realize that we're trying to look to how to dominate instead of learning the minatum of it?
Yeah, well, that's very true. It's still shifting. We need a worldview shift in our dominator culture. But this woman, Janine Benyus, wrote a book in 1997, and that is sort of the official launch of it. She's credited with sort of bringing biomimicry to the mainstream, or as mainstream as it is now.
What was it called, the book?
Biomimicry.
And the last name is
think
spelled
it's
how?
Benyus, Benyus.
Oh,
And
that's
she
great.
actually has several TED Talks, which are excellent. So in 20 minutes, you can get a lot of information about biomimicry.
I got to start listening to TED Talks. They're
Oh,
great,
they're
aren't they?
fabulous.
Yeah.
Really fabulous. So I wanted to just go over a couple of interesting things that I came across. And they're optimistic to me because they're just really looking at the structure of something. And if we just pay attention to how the structure is, we can actually reduce our chemical use. So imagine having a building or surfaces that you don't have to use toxic chemicals to clean all the dirt and crud off of your building. Mm-hmm. So what some people have looked at is a lotus leaf, and the leaves of many plants. You might notice that the water beads up on the leaf, and then it is basically self-cleaning. So the scientists have really analyzed this, and just looking at the microscopic structure, they have determined that there's water-loving and water-fearing sections. They're called hydrophobic and hydrophilic. But anyway, And so just looking at the surfaces and the topography of the leaf, they have duplicated that in a coating or a paint, and it's called lotusan after the lotus plant. And now it's a marketable product, and you can paint it onto your building, and when it rains, your building gets cleaned. So there's no, high pressure bleach, these toxic things where they blast your house or they blast your decks. You don't have to do that.
Wow.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And has that begun to happen? Or?
It's a product that is available. I don't know how widespread it's available, but it is a commercially available product. So something like that is
amazing.
Very interesting.
That
I
is
wonder
incredible.
if it's on the stock market. I'd like to get some shares of that. I mean,
because it seems inevitable that people would want to get it.
Lotusan is the name of the product. I think the company is called STO, S-T-O. So I think it's a foreign company.
With something like this, Jennifer, does it first come out and it's wildly expensive, and then it becomes more competitive when something like this is just discovered and they're not up to some kind of maximum amount of warehouses and everything else? Or?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. In something like this, its application might be higher in commercial buildings, because now they don't have to pay to wash these huge buildings, and that might really ignite its acceptance, and then it could be affordable for the homeowner.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't know how much this stuff is. Another thing that I found was very interesting. Now, I live in a passive house, energy efficient house. It's a German certification. So this one's kind of interesting to me. There was some guys in Africa noticed that these African termites, now these aren't the kind of termites that we have here that eat your house. They live in the desert, and they create these mounds that are 6 feet tall.
Woo!
Huge mounds. And they have this very complicated series of tunnels and channels, and there's a real architecture to the way that these termites have created this. And what they noticed was that even though they're in the desert, where the temperature fluctuations between 35 degrees and over 100 degrees, because of the way they made this African termite mound, it stays a constant 87 degrees.
Wow.
So just the way they've made channels out the top to vent out the hot air, and then they've made channels lower at the base to bring in the cool air, and this air circulates, and it's at a constant temperature that's optimal for the fungi that they actually cultivate inside their nests. So they actually kind of grow their own food, basically, the termites. And so they've created the optimal conditions for the fungi to grow.
Jeez.
But they don't have to expend any energy. Once they've built the mound, it's there. It's just a self-regulating mound. And so there's a building in Zimbabwe that was designed and built on the principles of this termite mound. It's called the Eastgate Office Center. Wow. And it doesn't have any air conditioning. So imagine a building in Africa doesn't have air conditioning. And it uses only 10% of the energy to regulate its temperature compared to like a conventional office building. So, this kind of thing, it's not...
And what's the 10%?
Well, I think it's the energy to draw in air.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. But because of the venting and the timing of when you're drawing in cool air and venting out the hotter air, they use, a tenth of what other office buildings use in that area.
That's amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so these kind of things are so interesting to me because there was really no new invention there. It was just paying attention to something and then modeling nature.
Right.
And, having this more humble attitude of let's study the things around us because there's some really interesting strategies that we can be adopting that we're not. We're just sort of, because we have access to energy now, we're just ramming it through and, turning on the AC when we want and turning on the heat when we want. We don't really have to do that.
It seems like there should be something, when you say you have a passive house, I think we're passive too because the place is a dump. No, but I mean, I really wish that, what did they do in Germany? They did this kind of thing where everybody could get solar paneling and all this different stuff. They made it available governmentally for a really low price, and within X amount of time, whole cities over there are solar equipped, and it just seems like it would be great.
And it's pretty cloudy over there a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So if they can do it there, then
I wish that
we
they
could do
try
it
to
too
make
if
it
we
more
weren't
conducive.
subsidizing the oil companies.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
I mean, it's a
there's
crime
that,
how much money we give back to the oil companies.
Some of our companies, we're not buying it here, but China's buying the stuff that we make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But New York City has been planting quite a lot of trees and shrubs on the rooftops of these buildings, which also cool the building off.
Well, you were telling me something about that on the sides of buildings. Something about it was a long time ago, so I'm not sure.
No, that was a thing that we were reading about.
That's right.
The vertical gardens.
Yeah,
and the algae. Was it algae?
It was some kind of thing like that became the
Algae,
insulation.
Yeah, it was in the walls.
Yeah.
It was something.
Yeah.
By the way, the person you're listening to is Jennifer Jandak Wood, a.k.a. the Siren of Science.
Yes.
So I just wanted to let you know that here on Guys at 5 on Mondays. Don't play it.
I didn't.
Don't do it.
I didn't do it. Oh my God! I didn't do it.
But he will later to bug me because that's what
No.
relationships are about.
Oh, sweetie,
Okay.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, let me jump in and try to save
yeah,
that
that's
here.
good.
Yeah, do
I'll
it.
tell you
Oh no,
another
it's past. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Another fun story. This one I really like because it's part of a student design challenge, actually. And these are becoming more and more popular, and some really exciting ideas come out of this. So this is an idea that was a design challenge from the aeronautics industry. And some PhD students at Stanford were looking to increase the efficiency of airplane travel. The fuel costs, the cost of airline travel, and the pollution is enormous. So they looked at migrating birds. Now, we've all seen flocks of birds, and we know about reducing drag, but and some of the military planes actually fly in formation. But they looked at commercial planes, and what if they flew in formation, like migratory birds? And there are these vortices that come off the wing, and so it provides more lift for the guy behind you. And they were looking at some flight schedules of Virgin America, and there were all these planes that were taking off very similar times from Las Vegas, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and they were all flying to London. Mm-hmm. And so they said, well, what if we could coordinate their schedules just a little bit? They all take off closer together, and then they meet up somewhere around Utah, and they get into a formation. And it's still pretty far apart, like 2 miles apart, but it would still have a huge impact.
Wow.
And then what if they flew all the way to the UK in that formation? Well, they calculated, this is a calculation, they didn't actually do this experiment, but a 12% fuel savings.
Wow.
That's insane.
And
Why?
because
Because
of the drag.
Draft. Yeah. Okay. Right.
And apparently, from what I read in this article, the airlines are trying to squeak out 1% fuel
Yeah.
savings. Like that's a big improvement if they can redesign a plane in order to improve fuel efficiency by 1%.
Wow.
And here's something where it's no new plane.
Yeah.
It's just paying attention and kind of reorganizing things a little bit differently. And we could be saving so much fuel and costs and
yeah.
it's a little bit
Because
more.
right now they make you pay for
I
a.
was just going to
Bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll give us a bag free or 2 bags
How about a free bag and about 10
And a
more
bag of
inches
peanuts.
I'm talking about I was going to say, how about some
Yeah.
free cheeses?
How about some food?
Yeah. At least 2 bags of pretzels.
pretzels, you
Okay.
lucky.
Now, she was talking about something much more lofty than this, and we
she
just
was.
brought it right down, right
To our
down.
level.
No, that's incredible. So now, armed with that calculation, are people going to try it?
Well, these students went and presented their results after this design challenge, and it's up to the companies to kind of adopt these ideas. But some pretty smart things are coming out of these student design challenges out of universities.
Yeah. It's funny when you first said formation, I was thinking closer, and I thought, gosh, that's risky in a way, but I didn't realize that it could be that far away and
Yeah,
still have
I was
an effect.
surprised. Yeah.
That's
Right, it's
amazing.
not Blue Angels kind of
Yeah.
close.
Because nobody wants that.
No, no.
No, that's
Yeah.
No, you
I,
wanna-
Suzanne Schoenbrunn told me about one of those where it was like you said, a contest for a new idea, and these people went over to Africa and they were looking at these tin corrugated roofs that were on the huts, and then the sides were, I guess, mud that became clay or whatever, and they were so dark, and plus, when it was the temperature was really difficult as well. But at any rate, somebody got the idea of taking 1 or 2 liter like soda bottles and putting water in them, and then you plug them up, and then you make a hole in the corrugated roof, and you stick that in there somehow. You drop it in or whatever, and it provides light. They had no light in the whole village.
Yeah.
And the water conducts that or something, makes
Yeah.
it lighter. And so it's the effect of putting a bulb in there.
Yeah.
And it's completely changed the way that, and it caught on immediately.
Yeah.
Suddenly a million villages had it.
Yeah.
But they couldn't be in their houses during the day because there was no light.
Wow.
And they would just always, they would be out in front of it and doing stuff and everything. But I mean, the revolutionary principle of just one idea like that that somebody got is
and
amazing.
There's low cost,
Oh.
easy to manufacture. They can make them right there.
Yeah.
I think that's real creativity when you
Yeah.
can do things
Oh.
like that.
yeah.
It's got to be another level of creativity where you feel really great. What else you got?
Would we have time for more?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do another.
Okay. This one is about.
We got nothing but time, Jennifer.
Okay. Okay. This one is about color and pigment. Actually, I just saw something on the internet about how awful the dyes and pigments on our clothing is. And there's all these new campaigns to boycott clothing from the Gap and all these companies that are manufacturing the clothing in China. But it's not just the labor, but it's actually the toxic chemicals and the dyes and the heavy metals that are
great.
coming out of the manufacturing process. But anyway, that's bad. That's bad news. The good news is that's why we need to change this.
That's right.
So the biomimicry thing is that you've probably seen wings of butterflies and how they're enormous color and iridescent color, especially on a morpho butterfly, that beautiful royal blue that comes out. Well, there's no pigment in a butterfly wing, surprisingly. It's all done with structural color. It's all how it diffracts the light and cancels certain wavelengths and reflects back some of it. And it's not just a simple reflector. It's a very complicated structure. But scientists have been looking at this, and they've deciphered how this works. So some of it's absorbed, some of it's canceled out with this wavelength interference, and there's layers. But they're applying this to fabrics. So you could actually have fabrics that have different colors just from this sort of diffraction methodology and not have any dyes or pigments.
Wow.
And they are looking at doing this for electronic display screens on cell phones. Actually, there's a company that's
That's a
pretty
great
far
idea.
along on
Yeah.
this.
That's a great idea.
Wow.
And I mean, it seems kind of impossible that could work, but on the computer screen, the way that they are building it with layers and these structures that diffract light, they can actually have a color display, and it's visible in much lower light, and you don't need as much battery power to actually backlight the cell phone.
Wow.
But I think it's
wild.
the bigger application is for fabrics and to avoid some of these awful manufacturing processes.
Do you think the peacock has a similar thing?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, because it does have that
it has
iridescent,
that iridescent
thing.
thing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So these, when you get down into the nanostructures of these things,
Of course, butterflies only live like 3 days, so you probably don't want to buy a new shirt.
Yeah.
I think they live a little longer than that. Anyway.
That was good, sweetie.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's when humor can cast a pall on the situation, isn't it? That's fantastic.
Fascinating thing to think about, though. That I mean, how does that work with the fabric? What's the process of?
Well, I think it's kind of like a little
attaching or-
scales or some sort of nanostructure in the fabric, and then there's these layers so that as it moves, it diffracts
Not like a
some
prism,
of it.
is it?
No.
Is it something that gets woven in, or is it just on the surface of the?
I don't
wild.
know. I think it would
I don't
have
think
to
she
be
came with that
woven
much
in.
follow-up information,
it is
honey.
a fascinating
Yeah.
to think about how it.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
It is. It
Right,
is.
but again, it's deciphering nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I invite everyone out there listening
Yeah.
to
Oh,
go
yeah.
out into nature and just look.
Yeah.
Pay attention. What is a leaf? Look at the shape of a leaf and try to figure out why does it look like that? What kind of function does it have? What strategy is it achieving? And could we apply that to some problem that we have?
Of course, the sci-fi farthest example is how do we breed humans to come in with more of this information like animals have? And then that starts to sound like a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. So that's bad. But I mean, seriously,
Well, maybe there is a collective consciousness and we're out there
Yeah.
pumping
Yeah.
it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
The scary thing is not just what it's doing to us as far as wearing the clothing, but the poor people that are working
In
with the
a place with that
clothing
kind of
as
dye,
the
yeah.
environmental.
Yeah.
Oof, boy. Well, we know you have to go somewhere. Jennifer, we're going to stay. I know all of you out there in listener land are excited about that prospect. But thank you so much for coming and come
You're
back.
welcome. You're welcome. It's
Every
great
week,
to
the
be here.
Siren of Science.
Yes,
Great
indeed.
to be here.
Hit it.
Okay.
Now's a good time.
Well, okay. The Siren of Science.
Ooh.
That's really fascinating.
Okay. I'm glad we didn't have She Blinded Me with Science when you talked about artificial retinas. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
But anyway.
Well, Jennifer, thank you for coming. And Cliff.